Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Excuse the fans are on. I've shut everything else off, but I can't. It's fiddly to turn those off. You have to put up with them. This is following on from taking the kikis off of the phyllum, which is this one. I'm going back to Hercoglossum, I believe last year, and what happened with this was roots were failing, and it turned out that the back of the mount was failing, and so I took the plant off and put the plant around the other side of the mount, and since then it's had a massive sort of root production that's boosted the plant, you know, quite considerably. And I think we've got three, and also if you remember, the Dendrobium senile was in the same boat. The mount had rotted under the moss, and with the compacted moss, the combination of the two took the roots down. Hopefully these are recovering. This plant recovered well from being torn off the mount and turned around the other way. And I've got three contenders. Basically we've got the Primulinum, which we've already looked at. The kikis have been taken off and are into soak, and there is signs of new root growth. Yeah. Now the latest cane that's pushing on nicely, I don't see roots directly coming out of the bottom of there, but there are a couple. But this is now in a position where this bark has probably gone under here. And this all goes back to the fact that these are the dendrobiums I've had the longest. Hercoglossum, not so much Primulinum, and then Nesta, Dendrobium Nesta. I've had this one quite a while. Now this is another one with a nice kiki pushing on, and this is in the same boat. I believe this spark is going. Now we've got two new growths, two new canes on this year, which is a bonus, and at the base of those canes are new roots just starting, plus some of the old roots are branching out, so root production is underway, so that needs doing. And again, I've had Leicester a long time, and it's been on that mount probably since I got it. I know I lost my record, so I can't prove that, but it's highly likely it's been forever on this mount. And again, compacted moss and root loss. This moss has long since had it. We could even have snails in under there, you know, who knows. And then the other one is this one, and again I've had this a long time. And the thing is with this one is different, because this one has multiple new growths, many, not just one or two canes. It's a different style of growth. But some of these new growths are active now, and some of them are starting to produce roots. And again, that's been on that mount a hell of a long time. Now I don't want to do this one just yet, simply because it's still got its blooms on, and it's putting most of its energy into the plant at the moment. But this one is also covered in scale, so I've got to treat the whole plant. It's not ridiculously bad, but it's there, just in certain places. Leaf joints, that's one of their favourite places. Yeah, but you know, if I spray this now, I will probably damage the blooms. But the blooms are on their way out, but some of them aren't, and some of them are still looking really good, so I don't really want to do this one yet. And this one came out in two phases. We had these over here, and then these. You can see these lighter coloured ones haven't been open anywhere near as long, yeah, as they darken as they age. So but that one needs doing. This one needs doing, Dendrobium Nesta, and the Primulinum we already had on the cards to do anyway. Now the Dendrobium Jenkinsii went through the same thing. That had to be stripped off, but that got stripped off its mount for a different reason. That was because it had grown away from the centre of the plant, and the centre of the plant had died. It was just old, you know, it dropped its leaves and everything, so it looked rather strange. So that got done for cosmetic reasons, but nonetheless it got refreshed, it got new moss and put on a new mount. So all three of these big ones are going to be done, and I'm just trying to think. So this one could do with doing now, just at the start of the root growth. So I think I'm going to take that one out in the kitchen now. We'll do that one now. The Kiki can come off and be mounted with it on a new piece of cork. And I think I'll do the Primulinum now, and we'll save this one for another time. Otherwise I'll be trying to do too much because the time of the day is getting on as well. Right, so we'll reconvene in the kitchen. Okay, I brought two out. The Primulinum I'm going to leave till second, simply because that's the one that's I have the decision based on do the Kikis go back on that plant or not. So this is Dendrobium Nesta with two new canes this year. Although one is not long started, it's got a good part of the season to sort of get going. So we should end up with two canes full of blooms next year. Right, so let's get it off its mount. Is that all of them? Yes. Now, as I said, there is some branching of the current old roots, but I suspect an awful lot of these roots are going to be just dead. Yeah, I'm seeing exactly the same scenario as we saw before. So what we've got is badly gone over moss and a mount that's just crumbling. Now, some people might say, well, why do you use cork bark if it does that? Well, all bark does that. Anything that is organic breaks down in time. But as far as longevity is concerned, cork bark probably tops all the other options that are organic. I haven't tried every single one of them, but I've been using cork bark a very long time. This is a new issue. Why is it a new issue? Well, because I have to have had the plants for many years to get this issue. Don't get this issue with new plants going on new pieces of cork bark, do we? So, to be logical here, yeah, this really has gone. So I think the best thing to do is get the scissors in there and take this centre part out so that I can see what I'm doing here. So this older part that's you can see it's just a congealed mass here that's just gone. It's even got some of the mount attached to it. And again, this would be hindering any new roots doing anything sensible, because if they headed down towards the mount, there would be no point in getting there, would there? There's just not a mount to attach to when they did get there, so they would be wasted and would probably just die. So we could be losing new roots left, right and centre here. I think I'm just going to trim round. It's going to go on a new mount anyway. It's a branching root system, so I'll just take them off. But the hard bit, apart from making a hell of a mess here, is these solid bits. There's no live roots in these areas. Now I'm sure that in amongst here I will have just cut off some live roots, but I'm relying on the new canes to produce their own new root system. That's what happened on the Hercoglossum. Once it got on its new mount with some new moss, it took off like a little rocket. It really did. And that's what I'm hoping we're going to get here. So just come to an area here, like there are some signs of new roots in this area, so we won't go too mad here. You know, this is an old tired root system. What I don't want is any old moss left in it. So we will keep teasing away here. Well, the one thing I haven't seen is any snails yet. Now the thing is with the snail issue is they can get right into the crevices on the mount, so you never see them. You only ever, you know, they come out at night and they come out behind the root system, do their damage out of sight. You never really know you've got the flipping things. They're only small. I think that'll do. It's loosened it up enough that any roots that push down now should get through, and they'll be getting through to a nice new piece of cork bark. Yes, we've got little live roots showing in places. Get them into a sensible environment, because this must be incredibly acidic. Must be really acidic. There's a huge big wodge of old roots there that I want to take off. These are, I've even found the old canes that got cut off ages ago. Buried in here. Right, that's enough left to be able to tie it on, so I need something to anchor it. So we've left enough for that. Right, any more old moss? Yes, a little bit round here, not a lot. This round here looks like moss that has actually grown, you know, actually spores rather than just algae on the zombie moss. This looks like actually live moss. Right, that will do. I know that looks a bit drastic, but with these two new canes there are signs of the new roots just starting, and if they've got a decent environment to get into, then they'll have much more success. So that's one. The only other thing I've got to do with this one is take the kiki off. So that's coming on nicely now. That should just twist off. Yeah. That's quite a nice little kiki there. So with those two canes and this one, we'll have 3 canes. But this one won't bloom because it's not attached to a blooming size plant. It's effectively a seedling to grow on. So it will need to produce probably 2 canes, 2 successive years before this bit becomes a blooming bit, whereas the other 2 canes should bloom in the spring. But this will bulk up the plant, so that's that one. Making an awful lot of mess here. I should have got my green thing out, shouldn't I really? Right, now same with this one. Take it off and see what's underneath. There's not a lot of point in keeping that label, is there? You can't read anything on it. Right, so again, I suspect this will just come off quite easily. So that's the thing, when you've got a plant that's well attached to a piece of bark, it don't come off easy. It doesn't give up the attachment very easy at all. Whereas I suspect, so I'm just making sure I don't grab hold of live roots before I start pulling. Yeah, see now this is attached. Got a feeling it might have even grown through the bark. So this isn't going to come off easy, this one. Not easy at all. It's going to have to be teased off a bit at a time. So, yeah, see, that's not breaking down, but doesn't look very happy, does it? This is still hard, soft in a couple of little places, so that piece is not too bad. Not too bad. However, this is going. Yeah, see, now this one I believe has been rescued in time, because it's hardly got any moss on it. Well, if there isn't moss there, it can't go off, can it? There's just so little there that I don't believe the serious damage has been done on this one yet. This has been caught in time. So it's just a matter of, let's get the old moss out. I won't bother hacking this root system. This root system can almost stay as it is. I'm just trying to think, this is a phyllum, isn't it? Well, this was a kiki from Alberto originally, and it's not really. What it was from Alberto was a plant, a piece, with 2 kikis on it. And the plant that I was given died, and I rescued the 2 kikis. So that's really what we've got here, is what's happened with the 2 kikis. So they've grown on quite nicely. What we've got is a little piece here, a smaller piece, which has growth. And then the larger main part of the plant, which would have been the bit that pushed on really well, that's grown new canes, you know, on subsequent years, and is currently growing a nice new one. So, and roots are branching. So, like I said, I'm not going to go mad and disturb this root system too much. We'll leave that intact. Right, so we'll have a clear up, find some new mounts, suitable sizes, might even have to cut some, and I'll be back. Right, so we'll get the nester done first because it's the easiest, because it's only got 1 kiki. So in theory that's the easiest. Now I often get asked when I'm mounting an orchid, do I put the moss underneath or do I tie it on and put the moss on top? Well, sometimes, believe it or not, I do both. But in these particular cases, with older plants like this, I really do want to get this part of the plant off. It's just dead. They're just pulling off, which is good. These are the old sort of original canes, and along with their bits of roots, they're just forming a bit of a mass there. So anyway, they're off now. So this has got to go on. Notice this bark's the other way round. That makes no difference, not to the roots. It's natural for bark crevices to rise up the trunk, yeah? But what about on a branch? What about an orchid that's on a branch? It's not going up the trunk then, is it? So it makes no difference, quite honestly. And this one just happened to have been prepared like that. I don't know what this got used for, if anything, but it's good solid bark. So this has got to go on like that, and it's a heavy plant, yeah? So my initial thing is that I'm going to wire the plant to the mount to make sure it's good and secure. Only need 1 turn. I'm just going to go round between the canes and then tie it off at the back. So we need twice the width of the mount, don't we? And a bit. So something like that. As I said, it's to expect fishing line to hold this is pushing my luck, and in addition to that, I'd have to go round so many times it just wouldn't look very pretty. So in this case, the moss. Where's my bit of wire on the floor? Ooh. The moss is going to go on top and be tied on with fishing line. I'm just working out a place for this wire to go where it will do the most good. I can't tie across the new canes because they'll have a soft base. So really there is only one place for this to go, and it's there. Right, we'll turn one end so that it can't pull, and then we can pull on the other one while this one is already secured. And then we will use fishing line for the rest of it, but this is just to take the real weight of the plant. That's all this is for. So we'll bring that round there. Far too much as usual with me. We'll put a twist in it. Cut the long bits off. Once the long bits have been cut off, you can get the pliers there and really twist it. Oops. Slip and break the cane, why don't you? Really twist this and pull it tight. I'm not even fussed if this actually pulls into the plant a little bit. The little bit of damage is on an old part of the plant, it won't matter. So we'll get this good and tight. It's going to need another one, isn't it? It's not going to do it. It'll stop it falling off, but it's slipped out underneath the wire, if you see what I mean. It's sort of done that, and I don't think I'll be able to stop that with the weight of these canes. So I'm going to have to put another piece of wire around the top, just on the roots, because I don't want to entrap those new canes. So we will go around twice. It's all, you know, your best laid plans and everything don't always work first time. You have to think on the fly and work on the fly. So I'm going to go across that solid mass of roots and hope there's enough substance in them to hold this down. Again, pull it as tight as I can. And then we'll do the same thing again. It's really hot today. It's not the ideal weather to be doing physical stuff. Like an idiot, I haven't even decided to sort myself out a cold beer while I'm working. It's too late now, I've started. I'll have one when I've finished, perhaps. Right, so now we twist that and see if that's got the whole thing tight. How are we now? Yeah, that's got it. So already we've got one new root. One. But the base of these two canes will produce roots in the not too distant future. Now we put some moss on. Not much, but we will put some. If nothing else, it makes the mount look pretty. But I'm not going to put it round the base of the plant. I'm going to put it off sort of to the sides and underneath. Another bit. This fluffy bit. Oh. I can go around the other side. Right, so that's the moss. Now the roots will grow through or under that moss. Some may grow across the top of it, and it will purely depend on where they come out. If they come out here, yeah, they may even become aerial. But roots are unpredictable where they're going to come out from, apart from the general area. I mean, they will come out from the base of these two canes. But which direction they'll go in, who knows? But they'll have something moist to get into, and we'll have some moisture around that existing root system, albeit a not a very good root system. It'll be enough to hydrate that plant for a while it gets going. So I keep looking at these dots. Are these scale? I don't think they are. No, just marks. Right, so now we get the fishing line and tie tie the moss on. So this doesn't need to be tight at all. This is, whoops. Well, if that piece is long enough. I'll have to do about 10 mounts there. We'll wind some back up. Certainly don't need that much. Although it's quite a large mount, I will have to go round quite a few times. So somewhere like that. Where's that little bit? Where's that little nick? Oh, I see. There. Newfangled nick. The other one was just a literally nick. Right. We start with a loop. It'll have to be a big loop to go around that mount as well. So be it. Oh, this is still not heavy enough. I mean, I went from 4.5 kilos, which was the first stuff I got, and that was just like, well, it was so wafer thin, that was useless. So I went up to 11.5, which is this, and it's still too thin. I need something more substantial than this. This is just too flimsy to work with. It makes working with it hard work, if you see what I mean. So it makes the job harder. Anyway, let's get a loop round. Right, and round we go. That'll do for everything above. And I'm going to put one through the plant to get the moss that's in the middle either side, and then we'll come round the bottom a couple of times and get the moss that's below the plant. So that's quite tight to the base of the plant, and then one more will probably do it, which will be low down where the moss is, its lowest point. Now on a mount like this, we could have done it that way. Yeah? In fact, that might have been easier, but I'm not undoing it all. Right, now before we start tying things, we just check that the moss is held. Check whether I'm missing one. Oh, it's hooked on the wire, won't come undone. Nope, oh, gotcha. Oh, I see it. So I couldn't physically see it. I'm going to go around once more around the bottom, as I've got spare. There we go. Now normally I turn the mount completely over so that I'm working flat, but I'd put pressure on those two, canes. They might even break as a consequence. Right, let's get my loose end. Now anybody that's shouting at the camera at the moment and saying you've forgotten the key, no I haven't. I want this firm before I even think about putting the key on, and we'll do that as a separate little plant. So I hadn't forgotten it, I just want to do it separately. Oh, this is so flimsy. You need something got twice as thick as this. And quite honestly, when I'm working with a plant this large, I'd rather just use wire, just have done with it. Especially as I've got a new load of bonsai wire, so I've actually got some thinner wire, which is ideal for tying onto mounts. Because obviously, if it's too thick, it's going to cut in. Right, so now we've got a little kiki somewhere. Where did he go? There he is. Now, I think he will just sit on there quite nicely. Yeah, So that's it, that's easy enough. I'll just put a little bit of moss over the top and we'll wind it round that way. So I think that will do. That'll hold him in place. And then if ever I want to take it off, I've only got to untie the kiki. Yeah? I haven't got to untangle the whole flipping thing. Because who knows, you know, I may one day want to donate this to somebody else or whatever. I don't know about the donate. It's a story with the Dendrobium nester. This actually came from an RHS show in London, and I saw it from a distance because the blooms are rather eye-catching, aren't they? I saw it from a distance, and I was talking to a good friend from the Orchid Society, and I said, have you seen the colour of those blooms over there? And he just sort of basically said, come with me, because he knew the guy on the stand. Come with me. And we got over there and he had a look at the name and started chatting to the guy, and he looked at me and he said, you want to get that, you can grow that. With the sort of things you're growing at the moment, that will grow easy for you, and then you've got something like that every year. And so I just bought it. But standing right behind me was somebody I know quite well now, and didn't know at all at the time, who was looking at it and thinking of buying it, but they hesitated. So I took it from right under their nose, basically. But as I said, I didn't know they were looking at it, and I didn't know them at that time either. So not much I could do about that really. But yeah, so there, but for what, 10 seconds perhaps, I could have not got Nester, and somebody else could have had it. Now normally you don't find out about that sort of thing. It's strange actually at that show. I met my first YouTuber from Romania, I think, and who actually ran a channel, if you know what I mean, not just a viewer. That's somebody who had their own channel, had a nice chat and everything like that. And somebody else there knew that person, saw them talking to me, realised who I was and what my channel was, and spent the whole of the rest of that show effectively stalking me. Now I don't mean that me, the person, but every orchid I went near, she actually barged in front of me and picked it up so that I couldn't effectively have it, and then decided whether she wanted it or not. So I spent the whole of the rest of that show trying to avoid somebody, which was rather annoying. But after a while I'd had a look round and I'd decided what I wanted to buy, bought it, and I just turned it into a little game. You know, I was reaching for the most awkward, hard to get to orchids I could possibly see on people's stands, and there she was, barge, pushing me out of the way and grabbing hold of it, and then I'd just walk away. I was having a whale of a time. Trouble is, I was sort of there. I hadn't been in the Orchid Society a huge amount of time. I didn't know people that well, so I was having a bit of fun on my own rather than with somebody. Right, there we go then. So this one's to grow on, and this has active roots, so some of those will get through and start to attach that little piece quite quickly. Some new roots just starting here. There will be some over here too. So we'll have these two canes growing on. So that's that one. Right, I'll be back to do the other one. I need to get the kikis. Right, now this is going to be fiddly. Now on here, as I said, we have in effect, this is a separate little plant down here that was put on there to grow on, and it is doing that, and it has some new root growth. And then the older part of the plant up here has its new cane. Now this has got quite a root platform. This is not an active root system to any great extent, but it's a good root system to hydrate the plant. So that, see the shape of the mount I've got, is wide at the top, which is where the big plant will go, and then it tapers down a bit, which is where all the kikis will go. That's my theory. But first job is to get the big plant sorted out and get that firmly attached. And again, I will wire that on. I think one piece of wire possibly this time, above the canes there will hold it. Don't think we'll need two this time. Perhaps if I'd put the wire over the top of the plant last time, it might have only needed one. But that one went between the canes. This one doesn't need to. This will hold the plant just on the root system alone. So I'm moving that over to the side so that it's not in the centre. Might be able to get one little kiki up there, and then I'm just going to wire that hard on, tight as I can get it in this particular case. Too much as usual. Right, that's got the plant. That's all I'm going to do for now. Now we've got to think about these kikis. We've got one big one here. I was just going to say, and that's got a new growth starting. No, it hasn't. It's a root. It's not. It's neither actually. It's just a sheath. Right. So we've got one here that's a reasonable size. So let's have a think about that going about there, perhaps. And the others are small ones. So I'd like them to all look like they're coming out from around the base of the plant. Now if you remember, I've said before that for judging purposes you can get a plant disqualified if it's more than one, for judging purposes. But I've sort of thought about this one, and I doubt if this one will ever go in a show because of the time of year it blooms, because there aren't any. There aren't any shows at that time of year, so it's never going to get in a show. So it's for me, it's for display, it's for us on the channel to see. And the more canes and the more blooms we get, the better. Right, now I'm going to take the bull by the horns and do this the hard way and try and get this moss on there before I even start to tie these kikis on. Because I don't want much. This time it really is just a thin smattering. I don't want these kikis buried in moss. Remember what I said about the transition can cause a problem where you change media, and the media that's being changed here is air to something. These were kikis, and if they get too much moss around them they may start to rot. They may take off like a little rocket, but there's a risk element involved, and I'd rather just not do it, you know, let's just not do it. Right, so that's enough on the kikis. Now we need to just move that round a little bit so that I can see what the hell I'm doing. Why won't you stay there? It's not heavy enough, that's why. Right, and then we'll get some round the other side of the main plant. Again, not a lot, just some, just to help hydrate these roots until the new ones get going. That'll do. Right, so now this is going to be fun. This is going to need a very, very long piece of fishing line, and in addition to that it is highly likely that pieces of moss are going to fall off. So I've just seen a bare bit there. That's a bit too much to leave exposed. Right, this is going to be fun, but I'm all for getting as much done in one go as possible. Always, you know, it saves time. And I still didn't get that beer out of the fridge, did I? This is going to be a very, very long piece, which means it'll get all tangled up. I won't be able to see what I'm doing because it's so fine. There could be some language. So I just had sudden vision there that I hadn't actually switched the camera on to record, and I'm talking to myself. Wouldn't be the first time. Probably won't be the last. But we do try not to do it too much. Talk to myself, I mean. If you think about it, all YouTubers are doing it all the time. Because when you're filming, most of the time there's nobody else there with you, is there? So you're talking to yourself. I know once it goes up on YouTube, you're talking to many people. Well, you hope you are. But while you're filming, you're not. You're talking to yourself. That's how it is. Right, we can get our first loop round. Get that secure. Then it's just a winding exercise, really. That's all it is. Just keep winding it round and pulling stuff tighter as you go. Right, and there's one. So that's holding some moss, and with my thumb I've managed to move that kiki completely out of the way, and now putting it back where it's supposed to be. That first turn's got 2 kikis so far, and the top of the moss. And now I've got an itchy ear. Right, that's the big long bit. Oh, this is going to be difficult. I'm going to have to put it down each time probably. This is now going to go between the canes so that it then comes over the top of the next kiki, which is that one there, with some moss preferably. So gotcha. And then we've got to go under those two because they're already held. So that's the next turn. That's 2 more kikis held. Right, now we go round here. Now we're catching some moss under the big canes and under a kiki, so directly on top of the moss, and some roots. You go there, and then that comes down over that big kiki and the moss that's over the top of it. Now what are you stuck on? Oh, this stuff is just so flimsy. It just catches on everything. Well, once I've done this, I should be straight onto eBay and see if I can find some bigger stuff. I want it at least twice as thick as this. Now, luckily, on this gauge that this stuff is wound onto, it gives the breaking strain, yeah, which was the 11.5 kilos. It also gives the thickness of the actual stuff. So that's the bit I need to look at, and I need to look for something 2 or 3 times as thick, quite honestly. Right, so I got a feeling that everything is now held. So now all I'm going to do is use up what's left going around again, just for extra security with the moss and some of those kiki roots, of which there are quite a lot. So we'll just go over and under in various places so that not to pinch any of the canes. Just at the base. There's another good one there. And then come back round here, possibly go there. So that's over that one and under that one. I've still got enough to go round, yeah, got enough for another couple of turns, which will be just for the moss. Enough for one more? No. So in that case you can come up a bit higher so that you grab that moss a bit better. And there we go. And hopefully that's got them all. So I can't see what the hell I'm doing here. Right, let's get that end tied off. It's things like this, the light's catching it, I can't see where the other end is. It's just like guesswork, it's just so fine. Now I've lost it again. Got it. And it's just tedious. I can do without it. And I mean, when you're working with moss that's wet, you can't help but get wet fingers. And wet fingers and fishing line just don't work, basically. It just makes it just sticks. What I'm just going to do now is just go around a couple of these straps and pull them a bit tighter, because they're what's holding the top of the plant. So I'm just going round again, basically, round the individual bits. Then we'll tie that off, and that will do. And in theory, in 2-3 years' time, you know, we should have half a dozen blooming canes on this one. And that should look pretty good. Because at the moment I've only ever had one blooming cane at a time. Right, let's turn that one round, see what it looks like. It'll all fall off. Right. Oh, that's not bad. It's not bad. So we've got a kiki up in here, yeah, with some moss. Another one here with some moss. The bigger one here, and a lot of its roots are over here. Another one here. Well, that's actually the one that's attached to the plant. And then we've got the main cane growing out. So anyway, that's what it looks like. This cane will drop its leaves as the season progresses, because that's the one that's just bloomed. This one will grow on at a rate of knots and will bloom next year. These should just grow on and just make the plant a lot bushier and look a lot more mature. So as I say, I'm holding this up to the camera and you can't even see it, can you? Yeah, so hopefully the rest of that was on camera. Anyway, so we've got what potentially is going to be quite a nice bushy plant now. Okay, last job on there. Make my hook. I don't do the hook first when I get the option, because it gets in the way when you're turning it over. It's much better to do it last. Right, that's got 2 out of the 3 done that we looked at. The Friedrichianum will be done probably in 2 to 3 weeks' time. We'll get that one done, but it will get done this time of year. So the new roots can then grab hold of something decent and not have to put up with a soggy bit of bark and old moss. So we'll go from there. See you next time.